Welcome, YouTube, to this rainy, dreary, crappy Sunday. As I look at the window right now, I took my Toronto Maple Leafs flag down from the window to let in a little extra light, which I always do, some natural light when I do my videos, and it may as well have not been worth it. So all I see is wind blowing leaves everywhere and dark, rainy shit. But I'm not going to let that detract from my Sunday because I got a lot of stuff to report on here and a lot more stuff to get started on today in terms of what's going to come in the next round. So first up, I got a bunch of games in one book to go through. So the first one is called The Rage of Dragons, the first book in a series from, I believe, a new author. This story is one of those ones that's kind of like Lord of the Rings. There's all these different names and whatever of people. Not as bad as Lord of the Rings. That's pretty detailed and so much stuff involved in that story. But it starts with kind of a brief little scene from this lady named Queen Taifa, who her and her people are driven out of their homeland and settle on this new spittle land by sea, and have to repel the I don't know if they're natives of that land or whatever, but this tribe called the Hedeni or something like that, and to settle in this new land, and to do so she calls on the help of a dragon, which she's able to control by some supernatural means. And that scene ends, and then we fast forward many years down the road. There's a new queen. One of her descendants is now ruling over this territory that they've now established themselves in, but they're always having to repel raids from the Hedeni. And the people in this story are all caste driven. They're all, depending on their birth, they're either nobles and they're higher ups, or they're lowers and they're basically fodder for the army. And some of the women are all the women are tested at some point, and they can become gifted if they have a special talent to access the demon world. And what they can do is, in battle, they can send out these enervation waves that send their enemy soldiers into kind of a half state of being in the demonic dimension, where they can't really die there, but they're kind of frozen in terror, and as they're experiencing these sensations from the underworld, and they can also help kind of bulk up certain warriors that I forget what they're called, but they become bigger and stuff. And so there's a lot of fantasy involved in this and a lot of craziness. And so as the story rolls along, we're introduced to this lower caste guy named Tao, and he is training to become a warrior. He wants to become part of the military, but he knows that he is lower. He's going to be the front arm of the army, and he's going to be basically fodder for the army, and probably going to die if he does see any action. So as he kind of trains for this, and he tries to do good by his father, he wants to be proud, him to be proud of, he starts this romantic relationship with a young girl named Zuri. And as he thinks about his future and stuff, he wants to try and find a way out of the military service so he can just live a simple life with Zuri, even if he's just basically a piece of shit on the side of the road, as long as he can be happy with his woman, right? So as events transpire, though, soon some nobles come into the town, and after a raid and stuff like that, and they eventually events transpire. A family gets banished from the land, and then, or from that certain city, and eventually killed by the noble who is kind of a bit of a dick and wants vengeance on this people. He was trying to rape this chick, and Tao's father actually kind of talked him around it and made him save face while also saving this family. But in the end, the guy was vengeful and had the family killed anyways once they got to their new destination. So then all these tensions brewed up, and then eventually Tao's father stepped in to defend Tao when he kind of lost it and stuff like that, and eventually he got killed. So this was Tao's kind of the moment where he kind of snapped, and he then changed his mind. He wanted to go into the military, get trained, and eventually not to be fight for the army and fight for his people, but so that he could actually call a blood duel on all these guys that were responsible for his father's death and bring them to justice and ultimately kill them. So as we see Tao go through this training, he goes away to be trained. Zuri actually goes away and becomes a gifted, and they meet up in town, and they're both like, what? And then he asks her about Ishihogo, which is the demon dimension, and how she accesses it and stuff. Because being a lower, Tao doesn't have the natural affinity to be a warrior and beat a noble, so he wants to try every possible advantage he can get. So he starts fighting with 2 swords. He starts trying to visit the demon dimension and get stronger that way. And eventually, things kind of come to a head when the military has all these competitions where the units fight against each other and eventually try to get to the Queen's Melee, where they take on the nobles. And usually the lower castes don't have a chance of making it, but based on the strength of Tao's prowess, they do make it. And so he's set and primed to finally enact his vengeance on these men that killed his father. But just before that happens, the Hedeni raid in en masse, and he has to start working beside some of these people to save their queen and save their people and save their land. And there's also some betrayal from some inside sources that have helped broker this invasion by the Hedeni. So there's all this subterfuge and betrayal and lots and lots of violence. So, and it leaves on kind of a cliffhanger. Not really a cliffhanger, but things have changed greatly, and the landscape for the second story is going to be a little bit different than it was for the first. So really good book. I'm probably going to get the second one. I think it was good enough that I want to continue and see what happens with it. So you may see that in the future. Next up, we got 5 games here. First one, MotorStorm Pacific Rift for the PS3. If you'll remember, I did MotorStorm Arctic Edge for the PS2 in one of my last few videos, and it was a piece of garbage. This is not a piece of garbage. This is a fantastic game. This was actually the second game in the MotorStorm series after the original Just MotorStorm entry on the PS3. There came this one on the PS3, and then they did the piece of shit Arctic Edge on the PS2. In this game, you know, in the first MotorStorm game, it was all out in the desert, in the canyons, and it's just these people that want to test their endurance with these racing events out in the extreme conditions and stuff like that. And it's basically like a big party and a rave and whatever. And they all celebrate after the races and stuff like that. So in this game, Pacific Rift, they went a bit of a different direction. They basically, you're on kind of like a lush tropical island, I guess, is what it would be. And the events are broken up into 4 different zones. There's the earth zone, the air zone, the water zone, and it's like a volcano zone, or lava zone, something like that. It's a heat-based one anyways. So there's a number of events under each category, and as you go along and complete each event, you'll unlock future events. And if you just make your way through all the events and complete them all, you've basically beaten the game. But the thing I don't like about MotorStorm is that it doesn't lead up to like a championship race or anything like that. It's basically just complete all the events, you complete the game. There's no final race against your competitors or anything like that. It's just kind of every race is the same, you know. I didn't beat the game in full because I couldn't get to the next level. I was like 150 points away, but I couldn't get enough upgrades on some of the silvers and bronze races that I completed to get up to that next level. I mean, I got most of the events done, but not all, and it was really tricky. Yeah, some of the events are just so hard that to get an upgrade from a silver to a gold is virtually impossible, you know. And even if you do, it's only 25 points that separate each medal from each other, so I'd have to win like half a dozen races or whatever to make up the 150 to upgrade, right? And it was just not going to happen. So I put it away, and I was happy with how much I played of it, though. I got a good enough experience out of the game to make it worthwhile, and it was such a good experience after playing Arctic Edge. And new for this game compared to what was in the first game is Monster Trucks entered the fray in terms of a playable vehicle. And then as you gained levels and unlock, you could unlock stuff like new drivers, new character packs, like for I think costumes and stuff like that. I didn't really fiddle around with the drivers at all. I just mostly messed with the vehicles, and that was the other thing you could unlock, is different schemes and different types of vehicles under each of the categories. And there's motorbikes, ATVs, monster trucks, big rigs, mud pluggers, rally cars. There's all sorts of stuff. So great game, highly recommend. Tons of fun, and I'm sure by now, like, I got it really cheap at Game Cycle, so I'm sure you could too. Next up, for the PS4, Override, Mech City Brawl. I saw this one on an EB Games newsletter last year, maybe, and I thought, that looks pretty neat, but I wasn't sure enough about it to get it, so I waited until, I think I found it at Giant Tiger for $9 or something like that, right? So I was like, that's enough to take the chance on. It's a good game, but not a really good game. It's kind of like Pacific Rim in a way. It's like these giant monsters start attacking all over Earth, like kaiju-looking type things. And you take control of one of, I think, 12 mechs in the game. And these mechs compete in like a giant mech battle league. So you're basically sport mech drivers, right? But you're enlisted by this this task force that has been tasked with taking down these giant monsters, and you now work for them in a real kind of setting, right? You're not just competing for sport. You're actually in risk of being killed and defeating these monsters and saving the Earth, sort of thing. So as you go along and you go to different locations around the world and fight a number of monsters, you gain research points where you can upgrade the different aspects of your mech, like your thrusters, your punch and kick power, all sorts of different stuff, your cooldown, extending your cooldown period or shortening it, I guess. And then you can also unlock different weapon packs. Weapons will spawn in each level, and you can go and grab them and use them, which makes things a little more effective combat-wise. And then, yeah, if you make it through to the end, you just do a number of missions until you face the final boss, and that's the game, right? So I didn't like the game in some ways because it was really short. It didn't take long to battle through this game, and it was also very repetitive. There wasn't a lot of differentiation between each level and during the gameplay at all. It just was kind of a repetitive kind of game that was super short. So there's not really much going for it in that regard. It looked great. It played great. It was a great idea. I just don't think they put enough depth and length and substance into it that they should have to make it a really good game. So, but for $9, worth it, I'd say. If you get it even cheaper, even more so. Next up, XCOM, Enemy Unknown for the PS3. Now this was a bargain. I found this at Dollarama for $4, and I'd never heard of the series before. Apparently this is a redo of a game series that was back from like the mid-90s, and it's a turn-based tactical strategy kind of game, kind of like the Mario and Rabbids game that we played a while back. And the story is, I think it's the year 2015, and this alien race comes and invades Earth and starts causing all sorts of chaos all over the world. And you are the commander of a unit for this XCOM agency, which is the unit that's tasked with defeating these aliens. So you go to different areas around the world, and you're sent down in a dropship, and then you take your squadron out and basically eradicate all the aliens. Sometimes there's different objectives, but usually you're just out there to defeat the aliens, gather what tech you can from them, take any alive for interrogation that you can, and kind of lead up to, ultimately repelling these aliens from Earth and defeating them. So, but there's so much going on in this game. You have a home base, and there's all these different aspects to it. You can build facilities within your base, like Starlink stations, laboratories, workshops, power stations, which all do different various things to keep XCOM viable and sustainable and upgrade different areas of your gameplay. You can build satellites to go around the world, which make countries feel safer, which reduce the panic in each country. So once a country reaches a certain amount of panic, they'll leave XCOM, which means they won't be funding you anymore. So you have to worry about balancing that as well. You have to do all sorts of research. So when you gather alien tech during a mission, you can develop new shielding, new weapons out of it. You can new energy capabilities, that sort of thing. You can stun enemies and take them in alive and get the staff at the base to interrogate them, which can lead to more discoveries. You have to hire troops and then train them. And then there's all sorts of different things when you're going out for a mission. You can alter everybody's loadout, you know, whether you want them to carry grenades or a med kit or one of the arc throwers that stuns your enemies. So there's so many different pots on the stove in this game that it's pretty crazy. I played it on hard the first time, didn't come close to beating it, and then played it on easy a couple more times, and I just couldn't seem to beat the game. And it was at the point where I was like, how many more times do I want to try this? Because once you get to a certain point in that game and then you have to start from the start again, it just becomes like, oh, because it's the same thing, right? Like, it's not like an action game where you can just jump in and go. It's very slow and thinking, you know, there's a lot of strategy involved, and I just can't, there's only so many times I can redo a game like that before I'm like, no, I'm done. So I didn't beat the game. I got pretty deep, I think, but yeah, it's tough even on the easy setting. It's just there's so many things to balance, and I couldn't find that perfect harmony of doing each thing to make my life easy, you know, and get me through the game. So, but would I recommend the game? Oh, hell yeah. I don't play too many of those turn-based shooters because, like I said, that slow kind of pace, I like something faster. But every once in a while, I like to have a handful of those in my gaming stable, and every once in a while I'll play one. And this one is really, really good. And it's kind of made me interested in what the rest of the series has to offer, because there's a bunch more XCOM games out there. I'm not sure if they're all turn-based or if there's some that are more action. So it's got them on my radar. I haven't really looked into it in any great detail yet, but it is in the back of my mind for possibly some future purchases. Next up, this game had me wrapped around its finger. Doom, PS4, from 2016. Not the latest one, Eternal or whatever it is, but the one that came before it. This was supposed to be Doom 4, but they ended up just calling it Doom. The story is, it's the year 2149, I believe, and it's on Mars at this UAC facility. It's the Union Aerospace something corporation, something like that. Anyways, this corporation is on Mars, and they have built a gateway basically to hell in order to take energy from the hell dimension in order to sustain Earth, which is in a great source of panic in terms of its resources, or lack of resources. The leader of this project, Samuel Hayden, died of cancer many years ago, but they saved his brain and put him in kind of an android body. And so he's the leader of this operation, but unfortunately he had a employee named Olivia Pierce who got seduced by the hell dimension and made a bargain with some of the demons to open a portal and let them all in. So things were going all to hell at this facility, and so one of the artifacts they brought back in the early stages of being able to transfer things back and forth between the two dimensions was a sarcophagus that contained the Doom Slayer, the guy from previous Doom games that lays the smackdown on all these beasts, right? So as a last desperate act to save, you know, humanity and the station and everything, Samuel Hayden awakens the Doom Slayer from his sarcophagus, gives him his suit, and says, you got to go take care of this. So then along the way he kind of guides you, and the station's artificial intelligence named Vega also helps you. So you basically have to go after Olivia Pierce and undo everything she's done to repel, you know, all these demons and close that portal and make sure they don't come through, sort of thing. So it's just a whale of an adventure. It's great graphics, great gameplay, addictive storyline. Like everything about it was just perfect. I found myself, it's one of those games where it's just, oh, you get an itch, right? I want to play Doom. Like you're at work and it's like you're just thinking about, oh god, I want to go home and play Doom, right? And as I got closer to the end of the game, it got even worse and worse, right? Because it was just, I could taste the finish, right? And there's so many different weapons you can get, and the weapon wheel is so easy to manipulate, and it's just, everything about the game was just so good. And the one tip I could give you if you're gonna play it, which I think is the same for every Doom game, is just when there's enemies around, especially lots of enemies, don't stand still. Stay on the move. Get used to, you know, shifting weapons and on the fly and doing everything at speed, because if you stand still in this game, you're dead. There are chill moments where there's no demons around and you can take your time and whatever and regroup, but when you get into a room with tons of stuff around, you got to stay on the move. And also learn early on which weapons affect certain monsters more, because you know, you can run out of ammo. So, you know, dispatching them as quickly as possible and using as little ammunition as possible really becomes key in this game if you want to beat it. So, but highly recommend, and I'm sure by now it's pretty you know, it's 4 years old. It's probably pretty favorable in the price range too. So, last game for the Switch, Starlink Battle for Atlas. Picked this one up on the Best Buy website a couple years ago. It was super cheap, the starter bundle and stuff. I don't think it sold very well, to be honest, but the story behind it is that this Starlink initiative, or I guess whatever it is, this Starlink crew aboard their ship, the Equinox, are traveling through the Atlas star system in order to find the home planet of one of their crew members named Judge, which seems to be, I don't know, some kind of android or alien within an android body or whatever, I don't know. But they're going about this, and as they enter the Atlas star system, they are attacked by this alien named Grax and his Legion forces. They are after some ancient artifacts and knowledge on all the planets in the Atlas star system regarding the Wardens, who used to look over these planets and are very powerful creatures. And so they basically kidnap your leader, a guy with the last name of Saint Grand, because they believe him to have some knowledge and skills that will help them out in obtaining all this information and such. And so basically you go on this quest to get Saint Grand back and defeat the Legion forces and ultimately face down Grax. Now, what's exclusive to the Switch version is that you actually play as, or can play as Star Fox. Star Fox and Slippy Toad and Falco and the fox or the rabbit guy, whatever his name is. They're on their a mission to hunt down Wolf, who's on the lam, and they kind of run across Starlink in the Atlas system, and they kind of do this team up. So you can play as some of the Starlink members, or you can play as the Star Fox members, sort of thing, and team up and go about helping Starlink, you know, get Saint Grand back and stuff. So the good thing about this game that's really cool is that you can just go straight through and do the story missions, or you can go down and visit any planet in Atlas, and there's all sorts of objectives and things to do on each planet that, you know, aren't essential to the storyline. And what they do is they help you build rapport with people in the system. They help you level up, and that sort of thing. And in terms of leveling up, there's just so many mods and pilot skill points that you can earn and apply to your ship, which, if you're going to face down Grax in the end and a lot of the last kind of big dreadnought ships and prime monsters that are on each planet, you really do need to take the time to gather resources and mods and get your characters up to speed, because otherwise you're just going to get wasted. So the other thing about the game is that it is very much like Skylanders in that it is a toy to game sort of thing. So the starter pack came with one ship, a couple of pilots, and a couple of weapons, because you can swap a weapon on each wing of your ship. But we didn't really find any other toys. We always depend on Dollarama to get us all of our Skylanders, because they always seem to have lots. So we were hoping maybe Dollarama will get some overstock on Starlink, because like I said, I have a feeling it didn't sell well. So I was kind of hoping for that, but we never really saw them anywhere. So we really only have, you know, a couple ships we can play with in the game. You're allowed to play with another one, and those couple pilots and stuff like that. So that was disappointing, but otherwise, it's just a really slick looking game. Controls easy, a really cool premise, and a really cool way of executing that premise with just the kind of, it's almost one of those open world games, but within a whole star system and a whole bunch of planets, right? So very cool. So glad we took the chance on it and played it. And yeah, we were both kind of sad when it was over, because we've been playing it for, I think, even before COVID started. So we've been playing it for well over half a year. And it was just kind of one of those constants that was always kind of in our life for a while there. And now it's done. It's kind of sad, but that just means we move on to the next thing, right? The next great thing. So that is all for now. I had the 5 games, the 1 book, lots of stuff. It's funny how games sometimes, you're playing a bunch of games for a long time, you don't have any completions, and all of a sudden it's like there's a whole bunch in a row, which is kind of what happened this time. So we've got started on some new stuff, and we've also been playing some other things for a while that may enter the fray in terms of completions soon enough as well. So either way, I'll be back at some point in the next month or so with more stuff to report on. So until then, enjoy this crappy, shitty day. So long.